Good morning. It is really great to be back here. And I really have to thank Jeff for coordinating this. And I also have to thank him especially for helping me after I missed my cue during the morning session for the children. They sat patiently while I was... And my excuse is I was mesmerized by the wonderful music. And then... okay, good, thank you. I have some bad news. I don't have a trick to start your sermon with. I know, right? However, in the spirit of the almost season, I did bring a treat with me. The astrophysicist Carl Sagan once said that in order to make an apple pie from scratch, you have to first invent the universe. Now, some of you might be thinking, I've made an apple pie, and the first step is to preheat the oven. Nowhere have I read invent the universe first. And some of you might be thinking, he better be leaving that pie behind, and when he goes. And again, I am. I'm not going to even try to leave here with that. And the most important question, I think, is what does an apple pie have to do with the web of life and the oneness of all things and the interconnectedness of all things? Well, the simple answer is it has everything to do with the web of life. So much so, I almost thought what I would do was pull a Buddha meditation on you. And I thought I would come here and just stand in front of you holding an apple pie in complete silence. And we all would just, and maybe some of us would get it. And I thought, maybe after a minute of that, you would go, this man is insane. Let's get the pie. So I didn't do that. I have realized after thinking about this sermon for a long time that it's interesting. The more you think about and try to analyze oneness, the further away it moves from you. The harder it is to understand. And then I left thinking, I'm in deep trouble. I got to stop thinking about this because I kept getting myself deeper and deeper. And I don't know. That was the other reason for bringing the pie. Because I thought, if I make no sense at all, you'll at least go, at least he brought pie. At least he brought, I don't know what he was talking about, but the pie was good. I will try to briefly explain this. And it has to do with something that the Buddha called interdependent origination. Now, this is a very complex idea within Buddhism, but it's really simply stated. And it's simply stated as this. This arises, that becomes. Because this is, that is. And so in our apple pie case, apple pies are because apples are. They arise together. They are related. They are connected. And apples are because apple trees are. And apple trees are because the ground is, the sky, the rain, the sun, all of it. All of it is interconnected. And then even stranger still, when you begin to break this apart, if you open up the apple, what do we find inside of the apple? Apple seeds. And what's an apple seed? It's about to be a tree. And it just goes on, and it's all connected. But how many of you, the last time you ate an apple, went, oh man, this universe, this universe tastes, it's all here, it's all connected, I get it, I see it. Well, there's a reason we don't do that. Because we've been conditioned away from the idea of oneness. We've been conditioned by the idea of separation, that we're not connected. Now imagine this. Imagine if this apple had human consciousness. Right? Now imagine it's hanging from the apple tree and going, this branch I'm on, that is one ugly branch. What is this? Really? And these leaves, I don't even talk to me about these leaves. Oh my God, I've had it with this apple tree. I am done with this apple. I'm gone. I am out of here. It's just me and my lonely apple self. Right? Apple madness, right? It would also make making apple pies very weird if that were the case. Well, as far as we know, nature doesn't respond that way. Nature responds to oneness by being in deep accord with it. In Eastern philosophy, it's called the flowing of the Tao. It just is. It doesn't have to ask or do anything to be connected. We, however, have this story in our past, and it's an interesting connection, where we took a bite of an apple once. You know that story? And what was the apple? What did the apple represent? It was from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What is that? It's the knowledge of this and that. I like this, I don't like that. Good and bad, hot and cold, high and low. Discrimination. Thinking was born. And the teacher Wu Xin says, I'm going to pause for effect. When discrimination arrived, heaven departed. We lost our sense of connectedness. We lost this sense of oneness. And throughout ages, the teaching has been our suffering, whether it be stress, anxiety, depression, worry, loneliness, heartbreak, are all connected to this idea of being separate. But then they say the good news is that idea is just an illusion. It's just a trick of the mind. It doesn't change the reality that everything actually is connected, which is really good news. It's really good news as we get into how does this apply to us practically. But to get you ready for that good news, I want to read you something that the poet Hafiz once wrote about this issue. He said, just sit there right now. Don't do a thing, just rest. For your separation from God, from love, is the hardest work in this world. Does anyone else find it ironic that we're doing a sermon on oneness in two parts? Just wanted to play with your head there a little bit, because now you're going, is this the second part first? Is this one? Because that, that whole magic. And by the way, I am so glad that magic trick, I worried myself all night long. And I told Jeff, we're told that the worst people to do magic in front of is children. Don't they just say? And so, anyway, they were so well behaved. I want to read you another quote from another great thinker. It was Albert Einstein. And he said this, a person experiences life as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. Our task must be to free ourselves from this self-imposed prison, and through compassion to find the reality of oneness. So if our suffering is a result of this idea, this delusion of being separate, then the antidote seems to be realization of oneness. And as a matter of fact, this teaching has arisen in every great culture throughout the ages. It was the teaching of the Buddha. It was the teaching of Jesus. It was the teaching of Lao Tzu. That regardless of what it appears, all is still connected. All is one. And that got me thinking about this title, One is the Only Number. And does anyone know where I stole that line from? Anyone old enough to remember the Three Dog Night tune? What is that line? I'm not going to sing it to you. Yeah, see you guys. But right, one's the loneliest number, right? Oh, to be alone and to be out by herself and to be separate. It's tragic. One of the lines is, it's just no good anymore. And we have that feeling, though, when we live in this state. Deepak Chopra calls mental illness shattered wholeness. And so this idea, again, of becoming one again, of realizing that. Now, a lot of us would say, Mike, I know, I get it. I get everything's one big mess. I get that. That's what it is. That's what it feels like sometimes. But that doesn't have to be our only experience of this. And then we get to thinking, oneness, yeah. That sounds really good. Oneness. Where can I get oneness? What's up with it? Can I spiritual practices, perhaps, maybe? Maybe there's a book, Obtaining Oneness in 12 Easy Steps, right? It should be one easy step, of course, if it's oneness. We like to break things apart. What are we going to do? How do we do this? How do we get into this practice? How do we experience this oneness? And here's the thing. Automatically, when the mind starts thinking about how do I get this oneness, it reintroduces a duality, which is an illusion. It introduces the idea that somewhere out there is a oneness that I have to go get. But if everything already is one, where do I have to go to get it? Nowhere. And that just makes the poet Hafiz's words ring in my ears about resting, about not running around in search of this, going frantically and trying to find out, maybe yoga will do it, maybe it will, but which yoga? Hot yoga, cold yoga, medium hot yoga? Meditation, what meditation practice? What spirituality, what religion will take me there? Where to go, where to go? And again, all of this dividing, all of this separating more to try and piece this apart and to figure it out. And the Tao Te Ching talks about this oneness as being the uncarved block, this potentiality just there, just waiting for us. And the teachers through the ages say, wake up. Wake up from the dream that you are separate. Wake up from this dream of this division. And wake up and realize this connectedness, this feeling that you have. And the reason we strive for it, because that energy is love. And I don't mean egoic love, that kind where I love you if you love me, but if you stop loving me, I'll stop that. And if you that kind of love, that deal. I'm talking about the love that Dante says that moves the sun and other stars. That all-pervasive energy. That every once in a while we get a taste of that. When we look at children at play, or we listen to beautiful music, or we're with a loved one, we have that experience. And everything seems to dissolve, and we're no longer separate. And we're just there. And we are experiencing that. And what a wonderful place to be without having to do anything. And here's the tip of this. And this comes from Kafka. And I realized I didn't study much about him. I read some of his works, but this sounds strange coming from him. But here's his advice on this. You do not need to leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. Do not even listen. Simply wait. Be quiet, still, and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. When was the last time someone told you you could obtain such wonder by simply sitting still? Now, for some of us, that might sound like meditation. And maybe perhaps it is. Maybe meditation. Or maybe it's sitting with complete awareness and eating a piece of apple pie. I really hope so. As the Zen master says, anything that we do in complete awareness becomes our prayer. So we can think of it as practices, as meditation, as yogas, but I like to think of it as magic. This return to oneness. And if you doubt me, I'm going to ask you to do an experiment. Try my pie and tell me if you don't experience oneness while you're eating it. Thank you.